Hi everybody. I'm here next to Quercus lobata in the Fagaceae. Just I don't know, about 25 meters up the hill from where we started at the gate. And those chatty ladies are still going at it, so sorry if that's in the background noise. But they have just as much right to their loudness as I do making these videos. So here we are, California valley oak. One of my favorite trees in California, probably my favorite oak. It's actually the largest of all the oaks. It's the queen of all oaks in North America in terms of its size. The largest girth, I think, and maybe the largest height as well. And how do you recognize a valley oak? We'll start with the leaves. Valley oak, being another white oak, very closely related to the blue oak, has the same matte underside of the leaf, pale green, kind of bluish green, does not reflect light. And then the lobes of the leaf are rounded, and the sinuses are deep. They go more than 50% from the margin of the leaf, towards the midvein. And there are quite a few lobes generally. They have a very archetypal, typical oak leaf look to them. Also a deciduous tree. Here's a pretty gall you can see. Oaks have a lot of interesting galls, and valley oaks have the oak apple gall is often common to see on valley oaks, which is a really big apple-sized brown gall. So keep your eyes out for that.
This one looks like a little piece of gummy candy.
I know. But yeah, it's just another gall. The galls are generally either wasps or flies that have their whole life cycle not their whole life cycle, but what they do is they lay their eggs into the leaf, and they trick the leaf into producing undifferentiated tissue that is purely for a little house for the developing embryos, developing larvae. And then the larvae emerge and fly around and look for another oak. Okay, back to valley oak. Here we have a nice specimen that has bark that I want everyone to take a look at. If you're Godzilla and you want to sharpen your claws, this is a much better tree. It's got thicker bark, it's got deeper furrows, it's got nice blocky chunks. It'd be a very satisfying place to scratch your claws. And this one is not so ordered. Sometimes you see them really with a very kind of checkerboard pattern, looking like an alligator hide. And it's usually darker in color than blue oak. All right, another thing that I want to point out about valley oak that is a nice thing to compare with blue oak is the way the tree looks. Its shape, its architecture. So valley oaks have a big central stem generally, and then they go up and their arms reach up, and then they come back down towards the ground. And this tree is doing it. Blue oaks generally have their branches kind of go up, but they stay up in more of a kind of an open vase-like form. And that every single individual doesn't have to do that. It's just a kind of something to think about, especially when you're kind of going down the highway and you're looking at oaks and you're seeing their growth form. Like I said, valley oaks are generally bigger. They're the biggest of the oaks, and that's partly due to the fact that they really specialize in these flatter, more well-drained, more nutrient-rich environments. And so valley oaks are a tree of the Central Valley. They are a little bit lower down in elevation than blue oaks. They love to live along the rivers and streams and the valleys of the Central Valley. And I think they range from the Tehachapi in Southern California all the way up to, I'm going to say again, Mendocino County, but that might not be exactly right. They also produce abundant acorns since they're so large. I think there are some reports of a single tree being able to produce over 500 pounds of acorns, which was about enough food for a family of 4 to eat an acorn meal every day for a year. So that's a lot of food, and people understandably felt that these trees are extremely valuable. They spent a lot of time thinking about how to manage for especially the largest of the valley oak trees. And the way that they managed for them was to use fire, low intensity burns. Low intensity fire does a lot of things for a valley oak. First, it clears competition from neighbors. Second, since as I told you these leaves are deciduous, some of the big pests that attack the acorns are weevils, and they generally have an overwintering phase where they are in the leaf litter. So a regular burn will actually reduce the weevil population and make it so the next year there'll be more tasty acorns. And a third thing is when you burn, you're kind of breaking down the nutrients and you're making it more nutrients accessible for these largest trees. So people would manage these oak woodlands for these largest trees, and then they would visit them. Families would kind of claim them, and they would organize with their villages, but they would go year after year to the same trees and take care of their trees. And that still happens to a degree, although I have to point out that unfortunately most of the area, most of the land that was managed by California, native Californians, is no longer under any kind of tribal control. And so it is very rare in California where a native Californian can go and set a fire and manage an oak woodland without breaking some kind of federal or state law. There's a lot to talk about these oaks. So I'll bring it back to the ID, and just to remind you what the key characters are, we have large tree with thick bark that can be blocky, thick furrows and dark in color. We have leaves that are heavily lobed. The lobes go more than 50% in from the margin. And then the underside does not reflect light. It's a kind of a pale bluish green. And the lobes themselves are rounded. And that's to differentiate from the California black oak, which we'll learn later, I hope, that has spine-tip lobes, but a similar shaped leaf.